Hey guys, what is up? Welcome to the Embrace Nerd Show. This is just a fun show for the mornings when you wake up in the morning, you're heading to work, you're chilling out at home. It's just made for you so you can relax and catch up on some of maybe the nerd news that you've missed out on. Now, this is strictly for nerdy type content, so some things may bleed in here and there, but this is really going to be covering things that we see in movies, shows, video games, and comic books about the things that we really love. And so, with that being said, we got a lot of fun topics today. We're going to be talking about Magic the Gathering. We're going to be talking about Rob Liefeld and Deadpool controversies. We're going to be talking about maybe an anime live action movie that's coming out, and what do we think that means for more anime movies coming forward. We're going to be talking a little bit about some TV shows, like we're going to be mentioning Invincible. Just giving you a quick update on a Vision casting. We're going to be talking about some things dealing with James Gunn in DC with the shows, and then we're going to be talking just a little bit about comic books and maybe some of the recommendations I might have or thoughts I have on the comics that I've read so far. With that being said, guys, let's get into it. Welcome back to the Embrace Nerd Show. So, guys, we have a little bit of drama we got to talk about, but before we talk about the drama, I thought it's only fitting to start off with something exciting and fun. And what is that exciting, fun news story? That deals with Magic the Gathering. Actually, I'm going to turn my hat back around. It's more comfortable that way. You can see my face. Anyway. Magic the Gathering film and television universe is in the works from Legendary Entertainment and Hasbro Entertainment, guys. And this is something, before we even get into this, just full transparency, there's been two types of fan bases, two types of nerdy genre that I have just decided to stay out of for financial reasons. If you can see behind me, it's not like I have made maybe the best financial decisions all the time. But I knew in my heart of hearts, if I truly got into Magic the Gathering, I would not stop. I would become addicted, and it would be a problem. And so that and Dungeons & Dragons, I've always kind of stayed away from. Dungeons & Dragons, I'm going to start to explore that and try to get into that a little bit more, because I think it's just a fun way to teach children storytelling, and I think it'd be a fun way for me to have interactions with not just my nieces and nephews, but hopefully a future when I eventually maybe have the blessing of having children. And so I do want to look into that and participate in that, but Magic the Gathering is still something that I may try to stay away from, even though I've almost got pulled in a couple times, because I was offered one time to work as a manager of a Magic the Gathering type store. They sold other cards too, but Magic the Gathering was definitely, and Pokemon were definitely the bread and butter, and it almost pulled me in. But I wasn't able to take the job, and I got out of it. But I understand how passionate the fan base, and I deeply respect how passionate the fan base is for this IP, and I'm just super excited for you guys. There's definitely some questions that I have about this, but let's read just a little bit about this and see what they have to say. Legendary Entertainment and Hasbro Entertainment are teaming to create a live-action film and television universe based on Magic the Gathering, the trading card game marking Hasbro's first $1 billion brand. It's a $1 billion brand. So this is definitely like a no-brainer. This is definitely something that they probably should have done a long time ago. The first project to emerge from the deal will be a film, with TV series and other content to be developed as well as universe expands. Created in 1993, the Magic the Gathering is recognized as the world's first trading card game, having connected with more than 50 million fans of all ages worldwide. In the game, players take on the role of planeswalkers, powerful spellcasters who summon creatures, cast spells, and use artifacts to defeat their opponents. And I guess in the movie, that's the characters will be those. They'll be the planeswalkers, I would assume. The game is known for its deep strategy, complex mechanics, and the ability to customize decks from a vast library of thousands of unique cards. Since its release, Magic the Gathering has expanded in a global phenomenon with competitive tournaments, professional play circuits, and thriving secondary market for rare and powerful cards. The game's ongoing storyline, set in a multiverse of fantasy worlds, is explored through its card sets, novels, and even crossover collaborations with franchises like Dungeons & Dragons and Lord of the Rings. That's another time it almost got me. Lord of the Rings, I really wanted those Magic the Gathering Lord of the Rings cards back in the day, and that almost got me. That almost got me into this. In a statement accompanying the Magic development announcement, Legendary Chairman's worldwide production, Mary Parent, said, "We pride ourselves in being thoughtful caretakers of singular, beloved IP, and no property better fits that description than Magic the Gathering. Alongside the fantastic Hasbro team, we look forward to creating a multimedia universe that thrills long-standing fans and creates a broad wave of new ones," said Zev Foreman, Hasbro Entertainment's head of film. This is an exciting and complementary partnership uniting one of the world's most iconic brands with a powerful and proven steward. The Magic the Gathering has inspired decades of epic world building and creative storytelling. It is a perfect match for Legendary's diversified approach to marquee IP, and we are excited to work together to build a whole new Magic the Gathering universe. So here's a couple questions that I have. First, for you guys who play Magic the Gathering, do you feel like this thing that you participate in and this thing that you play for yourself and have fun with for yourself, with others, do you feel like you're going to get the same feeling that you get by participating if you're only watching and observing a story where they're using the same disciplines and the same ideas? I'm very curious about that. I'm curious for you guys, how that translates to you and if that translates to you. Not everything, for example, I'm a huge, comic book fan. I'm a huge movie fan, but not everything will always translate to me, if that makes sense. A lot of times it will, but for example, I like the idea of Marvel Rivals, okay? I like the idea of Marvel Rivals, but the reality is for me to truly be really good at Marvel Rivals, the time it would take for me to get really good at it is not time I can really give it. And so usually when I'm playing Marvel Rivals, I'm the loser that's playing by himself in a practice mode, just trying to play the characters and, learn how they play, okay? Because I just know that it's not made for me. It's not made for me. It's supposed to be made for me. It's supposed to be literally made for someone like me, but it's not really. And so I wonder for you guys who are into this, but you're into this because you love playing the cards, do you feel like you're also going to be excited for movies and television series? Or do you feel like, I love this because this is the thing that I enjoy. I love the cards. But hey, you know what? If this can pull people into this thing I love, great. But it's not for me. I'm very curious about that. The second thing I'm curious about is there's been a lot of controversy, in the past few years that I would hear about from Magic the Gathering fans about things that the Magic the Gathering, the company themselves, do with the cards, and sometimes taking cards away because it hurts people's sensibilities for different maybe political reasons. And I'm kind of curious for you guys when it comes to storytelling, if you have overseers who are very concerned about certain sensibilities of offending certain people, for example with trolls, for example. Because I remember there was like that crazy thing where they were saying that trolls, trolls? It was ogres, I think. It was ogres. They were saying that ogres were like a representation of, African Americans, which not only do I think that thought is super problematic, but the reason it's problematic is it's coming from the company. It's the company that pushed that narrative. And it was a weird thing to push. It's like, why would you even say that or think that? It was just kind of odd. I remember that being an odd thing. And so, when you're watching this show, is those sensibilities that are super cautious about offending people, is that actually going to mess with the thing that you love? I don't know. I have no idea. I'm sure cooler heads are going to prevail when you need villains and you need people to fight. But it is just a thought that I had that, could spell some concerns for it. But otherwise, I think Legendary is probably a good group of people to work with. I don't think Legendary is as, the view of Legendary isn't as promising as it used to be when they were partnered with, people like Warner Brothers and they were doing like the Dark Knight films. But I think this is still really, really cool. And the fact that you guys are getting movies and you're getting shows, I'm really, really excited for you about that. The one thing I want to bring up, though, real quick before we go on to the next story, is supposedly there is a Magic the Gathering animated series that is in the work at Netflix, but that seems to be a separate deal. And so I do wonder if that Netflix series, if it gets to continue, or after the first season, it's all of a sudden canceled because now they've made this new deal. I don't know, but hopefully you can still get your Netflix show as you're getting all these other things. But we'll have to wait and see. But guys, what do you think down below? Are you huge Magic the Gathering fans? Can you convince me to get into Magic the Gathering and and make me lose an extra source of income? Or need to try to get another source of income to, pay for another hobby? Guys, I've even looked at I haven't started it yet, but I've even looked at maybe even painting figures, okay? Like when I say I am encompassed into multiple kinds of things that nerds do, I am. I definitely am, but it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, but maybe you can do it. Maybe you can convince me. But anyway, guys, let me know in the comments down below, what do you think about this? Okay. Let's get into it, guys. I'm going to get a little drink of water, just a little, really, really quick drink, and we're going to talk about a little bit of drama dealing with Marvel and dealing with Rob Liefeld. So, Rob Liefeld said that he's not going to work with Marvel anymore because of the way that he was treated, and it seems to do a lot more than just this, but the way he was treated at the premiere of Deadpool and Wolverine. Now, there's some things in here that I am well versed on the arguments for Rob Liefeld and against Rob Liefeld, but I am not well versed enough to know what is truly true and what is not totally true. And so there's things that Rob Liefeld claims and there's things that other people claim. We're going to get into it in the article, but I'm just going to let that be known that I don't truly know the full truth about the true origin of Deadpool and if Rob Liefeld is truly the sole creator of that character. So I've always heard stories about some shady stuff with that. So as we get into the article, we will bring that up again and we will speak on it, but I'm just going to let that be there because I think we got to separate certain elements of this where, there's posturing and maybe some complaining and whining, and where there's legitimate things to be upset about and to have concerns with. And I think it'll be a good conversation, but we're going to get into the article. The writer-artist describes several perceived slights, such as being denied access to the after-party, and makes a head-turning claim. Kevin Feige does not treat comic book creators well. Now, saying it's just Kevin Feige, we're going to get into why he says just Kevin Feige, but let's just call a spade for spade. It's always been known that Marvel does not pay very well for the things that creators did for them. I think it was like this minor character. What was it? It's the guy that created Thanos. And he got like a little tiny payment of some kind. And for Thanos, for all the movies with Infinity War. But then he said that, he made KG Beast for DC. And he said that his KG Beast check for the character who didn't even look like KG Beast. Like, they could have called the character Paul in Batman vs. Superman and no one would have known it was KG Beast, okay? Didn't look like KG Beast. He was just a mercenary guy, normal clothes. He was just a goon. He just played a goon in the movie. But that character was KG Beast. And since that character was KG Beast in the movie, Jim Starlin, was it Jim Starlin? I'm going to get mad. Someone's going to get really mad at me if I gave the wrong credit to the wrong writer. But he got a huge check. He got a huge check from Warner Brothers for a character who didn't even look like his version of the character, who was only in there for like a minute, right? And he got this huge check from Warner Brothers, whereas, Marvel, it's like, didn't really get anything. And so Marvel's always been known for that financially, but I've always known that Rob Liefeld actually had a really good deal with Marvel. One of the reasons that Rob Liefeld is at a position that he's at is because, it's not show friends, it's show business. Is that what the good old Robert Meyer and Burnett says? And let's just say that he made some good business. Rob Liefeld made some good business. And so he's been really involved with a lot of things. And let's just say, he's pretty upset about a couple stuff. So let's get into that. Rob Liefeld is done with Marvel. The comic artist and creator says that after more than 30 years, he is severing ties with the publisher from who he created renowned characters Deadpool and Cable. Liefeld laid out his decision in a 90-minute episode of this Robservation podcast, as well as in a follow-up interview with The Hollywood Reporter, where he detailed a series of perceived slights at July's New York premiere of Deadpool and Wolverine. I haven't listened to that podcast. I may have to listen to that later. Maybe I'll have another video that'll come out specifically about this. At the premiere, Liefeld learned he and his family were not invited to the after party, something he was accustomed to attending. He also felt snubbed by Disney's brass, including Marvel Studios' boss Kevin Feige, whom he says was near him on the red carpet but did not acknowledge him. Okay, so this I want to pause at for just a second. Okay, because there's some things that we'll get into that's a little bit more like, I don't know the truth. But I will say this. You make fun of the guy in the movie, right? Which is fine, because it's supposed to be a comedy. I think that Rob Liefeld's not offended about that at all. He probably laughed. He probably thought it was funny, okay? I think that's totally a normal thing to do, is to make fun of the creator of Deadpool, right? We're talking about Deadpool here. So yeah, making foot jokes, makes sense, right? And was it like Rob Liefeld's feet was on one of the buildings as an advertisement, right? It's just a funny joke, cool, haha, whatever. But to do that and then not invite him to the after party seems extremely off. Extremely off. Now, and then also, the fact that Kevin Feige just completely ignored him seems extremely off. To not acknowledge your creators. And Kevin Feige's over all of Marvel now. Just to be, everyone's aware. Kevin Feige, it's not just like Kevin Feige's over the movies. He's over comics. He's over all those relationships, right? Like, he's supposed to be the head caretaker of all those things. So to not even recognize one of your best creators that Marvel has probably ever had, in a lot of ways, if you like his art or not, he's an OG creator. He's made some things for you that have really lasted, whereas if we look at things now, there's a lot of things that haven't lasted for you, and that's partly because you're the way you do business. To just ignore him really seems disrespectful and really seems like a crappy thing to do, especially barging him from being at something like an after party. Now, I'll also say this. We don't know how some of these people act in real life. And we all know those people that push, and are really, really hard to deal with. And they have to be there, right? You have to have them there, but they're really hard to deal with. They're not necessarily the best people in the world. And I don't know if that's Rob Liefeld or not. I do not know the man. I don't know the man. But, it is something that's kind of, I guess what could be an explanation is if he's just a really hard person to deal with, then maybe people are just like, can we just not have him here? Now, I don't really think that's the case. I don't think he's honestly one of those guys who's a really good promoter. If you ever hear him talk in an interview, he really promotes the IPs he's a part of. And so, to me, you wouldn't want to upset someone, even if he can be a lot to deal with. And I don't know if he is or not, but you would think that you wouldn't want to offend someone like that, who is such a good promoter of these IPs that you are curating for profit. Now, the other question I would have with some of this, and we'll get into some of the things I don't know, I'll feel a little differently about in a second, but, how much of this is Kevin Feige and Marvel, and how much of this is someone like a Ryan Reynolds? We're seeing all the things, there's even a story right here that we've not gotten into, and I guess we could, with the whole, Justin Baldoni nice pool situation. And if you don't know anything about that, just a short synopsis: Blake Lively is married to Ryan Reynolds, who plays Deadpool. Blake Lively was in a movie called It Ends With Us, and they had a director who also played one of the male leads in it named Justin Baldoni. They made a movie together. Long story short, there's a lot of drama involved with that, trying to take over the movie. Ryan and Blake were trying to take over the movie and did a lot of shady stuff. And supposedly Nice Pool in Deadpool, there's a strong possibility that that character was supposed to be making fun of Justin Baldoni. And anyway, the whole point is to say is that doing shady stuff, we don't know for sure, but shady stuff might be in the way that Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively and some of these other people operate in period. And I know that Rob, would know that more than we would, for example. And I'm sure that he doesn't want to make an enemy out of Ryan Reynolds. But I do wonder, Ryan Reynolds is the lead head producer of this movie. And so I do wonder, and he seems to really want control over a lot of the things that he does. So I do wonder if some of this has less to do with Marvel and Kevin Feige, but maybe even has to do with Ryan Reynolds. But I don't know that. I do think this is a unique time to bring this up. When, the movie came out in July, you would think that maybe this would have been brought up later. It is kind of interesting this is coming out while all that drama from, It Ends With Us and Blake Lively and all that stuff. It is interesting that this is coming out around the same time. But this is what Liefeld says, and this is specifically about Kevin Feige, not allowing him in the after party, but also really not acknowledging him. He goes, "It was meant to embarrass, diminish, and defeat me," Liefeld said on his podcast, of not gaining access to the after party. And there was another apparent slight. Liefeld said he was posed, and this is kind of messed up too. Liefeld said he posed for professional photos with creatives on the Deadpool and Wolverine team, but later was told by his publicist that those photos were deleted. He believes they were only taken as a courtesy and not intended to be used, though other photos featuring Liefeld alone, as well as with his family, appeared as part of Disney's Getty's Press portal from the event. That's messed up to me. That is really crapping on the people that make these properties for you. That's just a really crappy thing. If that's true, that's a crappy thing to do to someone. And it doesn't make sense. And that's what gives me the feel about Ryan Reynolds. Does Ryan Reynolds not want to be connected and seen with him? That just seems like a very crappy thing to do. But maybe it's just Marvel doing that. But why? And one of the reasons why may come in just a second. Soon after July's premiere, he decided he would cut ties with Marvel, which he believed no longer wanted him around. At some point, you go, "I've received the message, and the message is clear," he said on the podcast. And I remember that, and maybe that's why he didn't talk about this so soon, is because he contractually had a story that was coming out in Marvel at the time. He was finishing up some stuff, and I'm sure he wanted to give his last hurrah with Deadpool, which he did. He came out with his Deadpool story, and maybe that's why he kept his mouth shut about this until now, because he was trying to contractually finish his obligations, be professional, and finish things before he said his grievances. Liefeld said that his discomfort with Marvel began in early 2023, when he learned the company made the controversial decision to change the credits on Wolverine. awarding co-creator status to editor Roy Thomas. Now, here's the thing with this. I don't know what the truth is, okay? This has been an argument as long as time because the people, honestly, the only people, unless you just don't like his art, right? But the only people that I've ever seen really have an issue with Rob Liefeld are the people that feel like that he really pigeonholed and took away from other people sharing the rights of some of the things that he created. And because basically the idea is that he is not the sole creator, and to act like he was the sole creator, it was to be dishonest. Okay? Now, I don't know what's true and what's not true. We all know that, over time Deadpool has really became who he is. And funny enough, I had the first Deadpool. I had Deadpool number 1 and number 2. My dad, I don't think, fully understood what those were, but I had Deadpool number 1 and I had Deadpool number 2. And I don't know what happened to them. I honestly don't know what happened to them. Maybe my dad grew the wiser and got rid of them. I don't know. But they are gone. They are gone from history to never be seen again. I have no idea what happened to those comic books. And it drives me nuts because it's like, I had something that was valuable. And of course, I probably ripped it up, the cover sides, but it's a shame, it's a bummer. But anyway, Liefeld said that this discomfort with Marvel began in early 2023 when he learned the company made the controversial decision to change the credits on Wolverine, awarding co-creator status to editor Roy Thomas. Okay. But that deals with someone else. They were talking about maybe doing that. People made the argument to do that for Deadpool. So he was aggrieved about this with Wolverine, but this has been a conversation about him as well, supposedly. People have pushed this for him as well, so I misunderstood that part. But this is about Wolverine. So anyway, the character was created decades before Liefeld worked in comics, but he is close to Christine Valletta, the widow of the late Wolverine co-creator Len Wein, who was upset with the decision, which totally makes sense, and plus Christine, probably gets, gets money from Wolverine, and so when that happens, it probably splits the income. Every time Wolverine comes out, they're probably splitting some of that, and she's not going to get some of that money that, she rightfully deserves because of her husband. A year later, on June 3rd, 2024, Liefeld fired off an email to Marvel asking if he could receive a special credit on Deadpool and Wolverine, and inquiring what else might be offered to him. In terms of access to movie premieres and other promotional opportunities, Liefeld did not ask for more money, as he already has perhaps the richest deal among Marvel creators. Like I said, he really did his business well. I think lessons can be learned from Rob Liefeld. That man did his business, and he did his business well. But I think this is probably where the controversy comes from. The controversy comes from him wanting that special credit, and it doesn't seem like Marvel gave it to him, and Marvel were probably annoyed that he asked for that special credit, is what it really comes down to me. Marvel generally credits comic creators at the end of the movie, but Liefeld wanted to be elevated to something more significant, citing the opening credits of 1978's Superman, which prominently listed Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster as the co-creators of Superman. And that would have been a really nice thing to do. If you could have opened up with Marvel and then opened up the movie, giving credits not just to Rob Liefeld, but giving credits to someone like Roy Thomas and Len Wein, of course, especially Len Wein, then that would have been a really nice thing to do, I think. That would have been a really nice and courteous thing to do, But it sounds like he was just asking for himself, but I think that's the route you should go, is you should just put all those three on there. Marvel's treatment of creators has never been their strength, Liefeld wrote in the email. Without the worlds, the characters, and the concepts that we create, and the specific case, the world of Deadpool, there are no films to shoot, no blockbusters to distribute, No, yeah. I am not the easy button at Staples. I am the human imagination behind it all. He asked if his request could be elevated to Feige or Disney CEO Bob Iger. Comic book creators cannot continue to be relegated as afterthoughts. And honestly, the biggest problem with comic book industry right now is that they are regulated as afterthoughts. They're treated as afterthoughts. And that's the reason that some of the properties and some of the things we love are not doing well and not selling well. And that really has to change. It really, really does have to change. This is easy to address unless I reach out to address it. It will never manifest, he continued. Liefeld did not receive a response, but was told by his agents at Verve that the message was not received well inside Marvel. A day later, he tweeted, My reps were screamed at today. We are not Fox. Wow, we are not Fox. Tell me about it. Also hung up on. He believes that tensions stemming from this email led to him not being invited to the Deadpool and Wolverine after party. I would agree with that. I would think him asking that request of his name being at the beginning of the movie and the interactions that proceeded after that definitely is what made him not get invited to the Deadpool after party and had his photos deleted with the cast. I think all those things are very true. Liefeld, while in his 20s in the early 1990s, became part of a rare feed group of million-dollar comic book creators, Legendary Image. Over the years, he developed what his detractors call a hard-charging reputation and a habit of minimizing the contributions of others who have also worked on Deadpool, which is true. That's the biggest thing people are agreed with. If Rob Liefeld is watching this right now, that's the thing that I do not know what's true and what's not. I think that is something you should address. And this is why you should always, live a life of integrity, right? I'm not saying he doesn't. I have no idea. But this is why you should live a life with integrity, because if you do, people usually come and defend you. And there are people defending Rob Liefeld now based off just principle alone. But just imagine, there's a lot of people that maybe are choosing not to because they feel conflicted. And the reason they feel conflicted is by things that maybe Rob Liefeld has done in the past. Now, I'm not the juror. I'm not the judge. I have no idea to know those things for sure. But I do know there's people that maybe are not letting their voices be heard on this issue, even though they probably agree with this and maybe agree with Rob because they have concerns with the way that he treated people in the past. They point to an off-cited 2016 New York Times article in which he downplayed the work of Fabian Nicieza, who is credited as a co-creator from scripting Deadpool's first appearance in New Mutants, number 98, from plot by Liefeld, who illustrated the 1990 issue. While we respect what he's contributed, he does not respect what others have contributed, says one insider. But Liefeld, for his parts, tells THR he is the one who lobbied 20th Century Studios to give both himself and Nicieza co-creator status in the first two Deadpool movies. He also cited writer Joe Kelly for introducing the now integral fourth wall breaking characteristic of the anti-hero 7 years after Liefeld created him. And he often credits Deadpool star Ryan Reynolds for elevating the character to global stage and new levels of popularity. And that's why I'm not going to give I'm Switzerland. I don't know the truth. But this is just the things that people have claimed and talked about. Ultimately, Liefeld and Nicieza were given the standard Deadpool created by credit at the end of Deadpool and Wolverine. Liefeld was also acknowledged in the movie itself in a way few living comic book creators have enjoyed. The film's signature scene, in which Deadpool and Wolverine battle dozens of Deadpool variants known as the Deadpool Corps, take place in front of a store called Liefeld's Just Feet, an inside joke about the artist, whose fans say does not draw feet. Liefeld was also invited to visit the set in London. Of course he was. And that's when they were happy with him, because he wasn't making his voice heard. He wasn't making his voice heard. So are you comfortable? Do you feel good? Are you happy? We're so happy to have you. They were making him comfortable because he wasn't asking for more things. But now he starts asking for more things. It's like, oh yeah, we're not going to put you, we're not going to give you what you asked, but we're not going to let you go to the after party. We're not going to treat you with respect because, oh, you're asking for more things? Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are, creator? This also sounds like someone who is indeed accorded the respect of prominent comic book creator. But when asked by THR about these boons, Liefeld suggests that during the London set visit, he began to feel unwelcome, though he declined to elaborate. Because sometimes you just get a vibe. Right? He tells THR that it was in the contrast to how he felt on Deadpool 2016 and Deadpool 2, which were made by 20th Century Fox. He notes he was involved in test screenings on those films and met with the marketing team on Deadpool 2. They had me along for the ride, and I call zero drama. I was happy to be there, Liefeld says. And guys, there's a lot more. Well, we can go ahead and finish this. I'm trying to see maybe the best thing. Okay, let's this scene's important. In his podcast, Liefeld asserted a head-turning opinion about Feige, who generally is only spoken of in Hollywood in comic book circles with superlatives. Like, we love this guy. Kevin Feige does not treat comic book creators well. That is my personal experience, Liefeld said on the podcast. Asked about this topic, Liefeld tells THR, do I think he can improve his relationship with comic creators? Yes. Also would add, I think that's super important too, because he's actually over all of Marvel. He's not just over the movies, he's over everything. And if we want better stories, especially in Marvel, they've jumped. They went talking about, they covered Infinity Gauntlet and some of the Infinity War stuff, and they jumped from all that all the way up to current day comics, basically. And that's what we've been dealing with recently. It's just a bunch of current day stuff. And a lot of the current day stuff is not very good. And you can get some better stuff if you work and you have good relationships, probably with your creators. Probably a good idea. He says he wishes Kevin Feige would have spent a few moments to chat with him and his family at Deadpool and Wolverine premiere, and would like Marvel to acknowledge creators more in general. He points to DC Studios' James Gunn as an executive and filmmaker who is constantly praising comic creators, flying them to the Superman set. Which, that's true. That is true, but, Feige, however, is also known to publicly laud creators. He name checks creators at San Diego Comic-Con, and he's often seen hobnobbing with creators on Marvel red carpets. The studio also flew a number of creators to the set of Fantastic Four First Steps. In October, held a New York Comic-Con panel pairing the stars of Daredevil and comic book creators together. Liefeld is known for being a relentlessly upbeat promoter of his work, a personal brand, and despite conflicting feelings, enjoyed hosting a series of fan screenings for Deadpool and Wolverine this summer. Because he is a showman, he's going to do what he needs to do. And I think that's it, guys. I don't want to read probably too much more. But, he let his voice heard. I think we've covered enough. He talks about how he felt nervous about this, and he considers it a loss. It has to be a bummer. And it's even more of a bummer now because you realize when he said that this was his last story he was doing on Deadpool, we know a little bit more why now. We know why that was his last story. And that is a bummer. But, you played the game. It's not show friends, it's show business. And you played the game. You're only show friends when they have, they can cater to you, give you kind of a little bit of what you want, a little bit of attention. But if you start asking too much, creator, don't you ask too much, creator, you're going to get punished. And that seems to be what happened. But anyway, guys, I think we've spent enough time on this story. Let me know your thoughts down below. Who do you think is in the right? Do you think Marvel's in the right? Do you think Rob Liefeld's in the right? Do you not always agree with Rob Liefeld? Do you think, what are your thoughts on this story? Let me know in the comments down below. Okay, guys. I just want to mention this real quick. I'm not going to get too much into this like I did that other article. But I just want to mention something about this because I think it opens up a bigger conversation that I want to talk about. Bakugan live action movie is in the works. Now, I do not know much about it. I know it's a toy line, and it kind of reminded me, honestly, a little bit of like Beyblade back in the day, you know? Got a little bit into Beyblade. I thought it was kind of a cool IP. But it seems that they're trying to work into a movie. And this has been a anime adventure TV series that's been around for a while, and they've had the toy line, and a lot of young kids are super into it. Well, it looks like Spin Master Entertainment is trying to work on this movie. But it comes up with a bigger topic, and I think the bigger topic is, the last show that we did with Embrace Nerd that happened yesterday, if you haven't checked that out, I hope you do, we talked about the Gundam movie they're working on, and Mobile Suit Gundam. And, we've heard things about Naruto is being worked on by the same guy that did Shang-Chi. There's a lot of things that seem to be kind of showing that we're getting into new IPs, new franchises, because they know that that's the thing that's popular. The thing that's popular right now, the thing that continues to grow more and more and more, the thing that comics should be, the same thing that should be happening in America with comics is the thing that's happening in America with anime. And maybe it's because how they do it and how they tell their stories and some other things, but that's a conversation for another time. But the question is are we about to get into a new type of experience when it comes to films with anime? Now, I don't know filmmaking-wise if we're there yet. If you watch something like Naruto, for example, I don't know if they can do the action the way that Naruto does. I don't know if we're there filmmaking-wise yet. Special effects and everything, I really don't know if it's there to give us that same experience. But I do think these IPs are going to start getting mined, and for better or worse, they're going to start coming out. Now, I think some are prime and ready. I think Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood would be a fantastic, I think more show, but I think Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood would be fantastic. Fantastic. I think Attack on Titan, you can actually do some movies of Attack on Titan. I know people may feel differently about that, but I think you could do some movies on Attack on Titan, and they would absolutely work right now if you want to do that. There's a couple other properties that I think are prime and ready, and it sounds like this game, Bakugan, is probably one of those IPs that's definitely ready for a live-action treatment. But I'm kind of curious what you guys think. Do you want these IPs to come out and be live-action movies? For example, I'm a little concerned about Naruto. I don't know if filmmaking-wise, if we're ready for something like Naruto. And even like One Piece. I actually loved the One Piece live-action show. Had a lot of good, had a fun time with it. But I don't know, when they really get into some of the other stuff, you're not going to see the quality of action in this that you see in the animated show. You're just not going to, because they can't really truly show that. They just don't have that ability yet, at least in my opinion. But what about you guys? What do you think? What is an anime property that you want to see come to live action as soon as possible? Let me know in the comments down below. Okay, guys. This is the last thing I want to talk about with movies, and then we're going to transition into a couple other topics. But we got to talk about the Super Bowl trailers now. Sadly, I'm going to be at work. So I'm going to be dropping a lot of reactions very late at night. There's going to be a lot of reactions that I'll be dropping on YouTube. Maybe I'll just go ahead and drop them. There's some important ones I got to drop as soon as possible. But there's going to be some others that maybe I just drop, throughout the week. And one of those reactions I'm really excited about is the new clip. I don't think we're going to get a trailer, but the new clip for the Superman movie. I'm really, really excited about that. I'm going to basically not touch my phone Sunday. I am going to be at work. I'm not going to look at anything. I'm going to try to stay away from it. But I am very curious about any surprises that we're going to see from the Super Bowl trailers. And what are you guys excited to see? What surprises are you hoping to have? And, like, for example, one of the thoughts I had is with Fantastic Four, I don't know if they're just going to re-show the trailer they've already shown. I kind of have a feeling that Fantastic Four might actually drop another trailer. Because if you notice, the trailer they dropped was a teaser trailer. And I'm kind of wondering if they're going to drop a full-blown trailer and maybe a 30-second clip of that trailer at the Super Bowl and then drop the full-fledged trailer on the internet for everybody to check out. That's a theory that I have, but I don't know if that's, going to come to fruition. But I'm very curious to see what you guys think and what trailers are you excited about for the Super Bowl. Anyway, let's go on to the next topic. And we'll go a little faster with these because there's not too much to really talk about with shows this week. I just want to let you know this just real quick. The Vision show is being worked on by Marvel, and they have a new cast member. And that's basically the story. And I'm not even going to try to say his name. Yeah, I'm not going to try to say his name. His first name, I'm not going to try. But Malika is his last name, and he has been cast in the Marvel series for Visions. And I think it's going to be called Vision Quest, I believe is what the show is going to be called. They're calling it the Disney Plus Vision, but I'm pretty sure it's like Vision Quest is what the show is going to be called. But he has been casted in the show. I don't know who he's going to be playing. I do kind of wonder if this is going to be Tommy. I do wonder if this is going to be Tommy because we had Billy show up in Agatha all along. I'm kind of wondering if this is going to be Tommy and if Tommy's going to pop up in this show. I don't know. Maybe he's going to play something completely different. Maybe he's just going to be a human character. But it is kind of interesting. It's kind of cool. But, congratulations to that actor for getting a role. But I don't think there's much more to talk about when it comes to that. Okay. Now, before we get into the next thing, let's just talk a little bit about Invincible. I'm not going to get into a full thing about my thoughts on it. I really enjoyed it. I'm super excited for what Invincible is bringing us. But it's really more to ask you guys what your thoughts are on the show. Like I said, I am really excited about it. I think it's much better than the Spider-Man show that we have right now. But the one thing that constantly bugs me, and it's something I want to bring up, is the hiring of these really famous actors and spending all that money to hire these famous actors who are only in a couple scenes instead of using that money for the animation. Because besides your main characters, right? Besides Mark, besides Omni-Man, Seth Rogen is like the executive producer of the show. So him playing, the character he plays, I don't really think that's too big of a deal. But you have all these A-list or big-time celebrities who are involved in this show playing very minor characters, and it just feels like you're probably spending way too much money on them when you could be spending more money on making sure your quality is phenomenal. I still love the animation. I still enjoy the animation for Invincible. But when you watch the Devil May Cry trailer, for example, you realize that, man, this animation could be so much better. It could be so much better. And it's such a bummer that it's not. And that's all I really want to bring up with it. That's just a little nitpick that I have. But everything else I really enjoyed and really loved from the show. And so I'm curious for you, do you have any grievances with, Invincible? Are there things that you're excited about with Invincible? Are there things you've enjoyed with Invincible? Let me know in the comments down below what you are thinking about the show so far. All right, guys. Let me get another drink of water, and we will go to the next topic. All right, guys. So, we got to talk about something dealing with DC. And I just thought this was interesting. And, I was trying to find some news stories to talk about. And I don't know, this will eventually probably get referenced and it'll be all over Twitter. But right now, I found it, I saw it, and it's something I didn't see anyone talk about. And it happened like 3 days ago. But a fan was writing to James Gunn on Threads. He likes using Threads. I prefer to use X. You can follow me on there. But James Gunn was asked, he said, "Hey, I've been wondering, since Creature Commandos Season 2 has been greenlit, does that mean the script has already been finished?" And if you don't know, there's a rule that James Gunn has about not greenlighting anything that doesn't have a finished script. Okay? And it's a rule that he has that he's going to stick to. And because you can listen to interviews that he's done where he really is aggrieved with the way that a lot of filmmaking is done now, where they're really just, they don't even have finished scripts and they're going out and trying to make a movie. There's a reason that Blade movie that should have came out years ago, we're never going to see. We're never going to see that Blade movie. And the reason we're never going to see it is because they didn't even have a well-made, really good script that anyone agreed on as they were even trying to film the movie, which is such a bummer. It's such a bummer. But James Gunn says, when I say we only greenlight scripts that are finished, that doesn't apply to second seasons of television series. And I guess the idea is like, at this point, we trust you. You know, you've helped us make the show. You greenlit, you had a good first season. We trust you now. So now go forth, create your content, But I do think that they will not just put garbage out in production. But clearly, if a show's greenlit, people love it. You got to trust your writers to a certain degree. And, you got to get to work, especially how hard animation is. Like, animation takes some time to get done. And so for something like that, especially, it's like, you know what? We trust you guys. We know what you can do. And so we are going to encourage you to continue what you're doing and get the product out at a reasonable time while still maintaining quality. But I do think it's interesting that he's not going to uphold the same strict rules about scripts for second seasons and future seasons of shows that maybe he would hold on other content that's going to come forth. I just find that kind of interesting. But maybe that's, you've passed, right? Like, you do a first season and it's really good. You've passed that vetting process. So he knows that he can trust you in the future to hopefully come out with something that's really, really good. I just thought that was interesting. But let me know your thoughts. Do you like the rule that James Gunn has set forth? Do you think that rule in practice makes sense? And do you have concerns with not applying that same rule to something like a second season of a show? Or do you think this is just the logical thing to do and this makes total sense? Let me know down in the comments down below. Okay, guys. We are going to start getting close to wrapping things up. But just want to give a quick reminder. There's not much gaming news to talk about. Really too much. I do kind of want to mention some things, the story that I mentioned yesterday. And if you haven't watched the show, again, another plug, go check out the show yesterday where we talked about supposedly James Gunn is following one of the main guys over at PlayStation. Okay, he is following that person on Instagram, maybe on Threads, and we kind of talked about the possibilities of that. And I'm just more curious about you guys. What is a game that you would love for PlayStation to make that is a DC property? For me, I want to see a Superman game. I think we are much needed for a Superman game, and I don't know if I trust the current studios at Warner Brothers Games to make that game. The ones that I do trust are already working on other stuff, and so I would love to see a beautiful, beautiful game that was made about Superman, for Superman fans, that was made for PlayStation. And I think that would be just incredible. But what about you guys? What is a game that you would like to see from PlayStation that deals with DC properties? I would really be curious to hear your thoughts on that. Another thing is just a reminder. It won't be this weekend. It will not be this weekend, but next week I am going to take time out of my day and I'm going to make sure that I start playing Devil May Cry 3. A lot of subscribers have joined me because of Devil May Cry, and I think it's a perfect way to say thank you for you guys who've subscribed to me. I am someone who's never really checked out or been a part of the Devil May Devil May Cry fan base. I've always wanted to, but I was kind of younger, on the younger side, and my parents would not let me get that game, probably because it had the word devil in it. But it's something I'm definitely excited to check out, and I will be playing that this week, and I'll probably be dropping more edited videos, so you're not hearing my like deep breathing and not watching me for hours just walk down halls and not know where I'm going. But I'm probably going to edit it down to like fun playthrough videos that you guys can check out if you want, and it'll be available for you on the weekends, not this weekend, but next weekend. And so I just want to give a reminder of that in case that's something that interests you. And so I'm going to be playing that soon, and I'm really, really excited. I'm really excited to check out Devil May Cry, and hopefully I can get some pointers from you guys who have played the game in case I'm just hot garbage, which is always possible. We'll have to see. But anyway, let's end off with this. There's no really true, like, crazy comic book stories really to talk about. The crazy comic book story was kind of a movie story, and that dealt with Rob Liefeld. But something I just want to hit on real quick is some of the comic books I've gotten to read. I haven't got to read a lot, but I made sure I read 3. I made sure I read a Marvel book, I made sure I read a DC book, and I made sure I read a independent book. And I'm going to tell you from quality, from best to worst, what I read, and if I encourage you to check it out. Okay? The first one I checked out was an independent book called Cruel Kingdom. And guys, it's the best book that I read. Okay, I read 3 comics. It is the best book I read. It is phenomenal. It is phenomenal. Now, certain stories are better than others. It's a collaboration. It's like 37 pages. It's a collaboration of different stories. And I read the first issue. There's 2 issues out right now, but I read the first issue. And the first story was the headliner story, and it was the best story. It was really good. But just imagine, basically, not all these things deal with sci-fi elements, but just imagine that you're in, older times where knights and, magical creatures, fantasy worlds exist in these different stories. And all of a sudden you throw maybe sci-fi elements in those worlds, and it was really cool. It was really cool. Not all of them dealt with sci-fi stuff. Some of them were twists on stories like Snow White, for example. But they were all really, really good. And like I said, the very first one, and the reason it caught my eye, and I don't want to spoil anything, but there was a robot with a sword, a king's cape, and a crown on the cover, and standing a bunch of people, and that was the winning thing for me. I was like, yes, that's awesome. That won me over to check out the comic, and I'm really, really glad I did because I had a lot of fun stories, and I thought it was just a really, really good time. So I highly, highly, highly recommend it. The next thing that I checked out was Absolute Superman. I knew I was going to check out something from DC. I really, really have been enjoying JSA, but I was like, Absolute is the thing that people are really loving right now. I've enjoyed Absolute Superman, and that's where I think I stay. I would say that Cruel Kingdom is definitely phenomenal. I would say at least most of the stories are definitely phenomenal, if not just good. They're good to great. And I would say that Absolute Superman was good. That was a really good comic. I wouldn't say really good, but I would say it was a good comic. I enjoyed it. It definitely opened up some things story-wise. There was a lot more action in the story. You got to see, Clark use his powers. And so I don't want to spoil anything, but it was fun. And it released some new characters. So it was definitely enjoyable. I would definitely put it in the second place, though, because I thought Cruel Kingdom was the best. And the last thing, I'm kind of sad about this, it caught my eye, and I thought about reading a Ultimate Comics. I'm very behind on the Ultimate Comics, but I enjoyed what I've read. But I decided to check out something totally different. It's a first issue, so I was like, well, this could be interesting. And it was called Power Man the Timeless. And, Power Man, Luke Cage. And I'm a big fan of Heroes for Hire. I'm a big fan of Iron Fist and Luke Cage together. And so it seemed to be a little different. And you could tell by reading the comic that he may have some abilities that he didn't have before, maybe. And I didn't expect it to be what it was, and I thought it still could be for me, but I have to admit it really wasn't. It really wasn't for me, which is kind of a bummer because it's even the thing that I've thought of for a long time when it comes to, black characters in stories. I feel like a lot of times black characters in stories, especially Marvel and DC, they don't do interesting things with them like they should. They don't put them in environments or in elements that are new. They always try to put them in an experience where it's like you're just telling the same stories over and over again. And I'm not saying those stories aren't needed, right? I'm not saying those stories aren't needed. But instead of, me seeing Cyborg, hanging out in the streets and living, talking about the experience of being in America, as a black superhero, put Cyborg, out into the fourth world where the new gods are. You know what I mean? Like, put Cyborg somewhere else and tell me a story with him doing something totally different and give me that experience. That's what I want. And this is what that story is. It's trying to give you a different experience with that character and give you this very unique thing. And so this is the story that should be made for me. And that's the reason I even checked it out, because I thought if there was ever a story that would be made for me, it's this. It's this. But I really couldn't get into it that much. It was fine. That's what I would just say. It's fine. But I probably won't be reading the second issue, and I think that's a bummer, because if there was ever a story that was made for me, it was definitely that one. It was definitely that one. So that's kind of a bummer. But those are the 3 comics I read. I am behind on my comic book reading. I'm probably going to try to spend a Sunday night when I get home from work. I'm probably going to try to spend some time reading a little bit of comics. But what about you guys? What comic books have you read? Did you go to Comic Book Day on Wednesday? Did you pick some things up? Are there things that you would recommend me checking out? I need to, check out some new creative stuff. So let me know what you think. But guys, it's been a fun show. I think this is where we're going to leave it off here. I think this is going to be the end of the show for Friday's show of Embrace Nerd. Guys, if you've listened this long, I really do appreciate it. I'm very, very thankful and grateful. But guys, I'll just leave it off with this. Wherever you're going, whatever you're doing, I hope you're having a good one. Peace.